Exposed, 14 sinister ghost encounters that will haunt your nights with unexplained terror. Claire burst through her front door, breathless from her late shift at the diner. The clock on the wall ticked in an eerie rhythm, echoing in the stillness of the house. With each tick, the shadows loomed larger, more sinister. Her heart raced. A chill crawled along her spine. Just last week, she'd revealed a ghostly encounter to her friends, and they laughed it off. "You're just tired," they said, but how could she explain the cold spots in the living room or the unsettling whispers that danced through the air as she tried to nod off? Timmy and Ella were upstairs, and Claire felt a prickling sense of being watched. She instinctively glanced over her shoulder into the dimly lit hallway. The hallway seemed to stretch impossibly long, shadows flickering. Just as she thought she could shake the fear, she heard it, a soft giggle, echoing through the walls. Not the kids, but something else, something lurking in the dark. The air thickened as she battled against an encroaching dread, her mind racing with thoughts that twisted and turned like dark tendrils of smoke. Then she thought of Timmy. He had claimed to see a shadowy figure hiding behind the door last week. "It's just a trick of the light," she'd said, but what if it wasn't he? What if something really was out there? Outside, the sun dipped low, giving way to an oppressive nightfall. She felt her chest tighten. Things had changed since Mark passed away. The comfortable familiarity of their home had become a breeding ground for shadows and secrets. Just as she tried to brush it off, the phone rang, shattering her thoughts. It was Timmy, face twisted in fear. "Mom." Ella's talking to the shadow in the hallway. Panic surged through her veins, but she forced her feet to move. Racing back, she expected calamity: an open window, a rogue babysitter. Yet her home stood quiet, empty, save for the pounding of her heart in her ears. "Ella." A mantle of silence cloaked her call. No answer. She darted through the still house, searching every room. Terrified where she might discover her little girl, she was met only with shadows. The police dismissed her fears as sleep-deprived paranoia, feigning sympathy before turning back to their squad car. She was alone. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The whispers transformed from a murmur into screams inside her head. On her hands and knees, she found an old newspaper clipping behind the vent. The Wilsons, another family haunted by the shadows that dwelt within these walls. The ground she stood on seemed to pulse with a malevolence that made her skin itch. They didn't leave willingly. What if they were never gone? Shivers coursed through Claire as weighty silence filled the air, suffocating her resolve. What had begun as odd noises turned sinister as the atmosphere thickened. The very walls seemed to pulse with the lingering echoes of something unspeakable. She felt their presence pressing against her, hungry for more. Suddenly, a giggle floated down the stairs, an innocent sound cloaked in malice. It wasn't Ella. The darkness around her felt alive, thrumming with energy, eager, waiting. Claire knew she had to confront it. Whatever haunts her home, she couldn't let it take her children. Racing down the path into the night, she felt eyes in the darkness and the whispers carrying promises of dread. She had to find Ella before the shadows claimed them all. The cool night air bit at Claire's skin as she stumbled out into the darkness, breath quickening with every step. Fear clawed at her throat as she ran, panic turning her movements erratic. The shadows, thick and menacing, twisted around her like ghosts themselves, waiting to snare her in their grip. "Ella!" She called again, her voice trembling. Each syllable felt swallowed by the night, a futile echo against the relentless quiet. Images of her daughter playing joyfully in the living room flickered in her mind, replaced by the dread of what could be lurking just out of sight. The world around her grew heavier, an invisible weight pressing against her chest. As she scanned the street, the familiar sights loomed larger, distorted by the growing fear inside her. She reached the end of her driveway and slowed. The silhouette of an old oak tree stood like a sentinel, its gnarled branches scraping against the starry sky, and for a moment, she hesitated. What if Ella wandered off toward it? Rationale whispered caution, but desperation surged her forward. She hesitated only a heartbeat before darting into the night, the darkness swallowing her whole. As she approached the tree, the wind picked up, sending a chill through her bones. She glanced back, half expecting to see the comforts of home, but what she found made her blood run cold. There, illuminated by the faint light of the porch, stood a pale figure. A child, its face obscured by shadows, stood just beyond the reach of light. No, this was no ordinary child. This was something other, its eyes white voids that seemed to absorb the very light around it. Ella! Claire cried out, terror wrapping around her heart like a vice. But as she rushed closer, the figure dissolved into the dark, leaving nothing but a heavy silence in its wake. What was happening? The air felt electric, the hairs on her arms standing at attention as if warning her of a great danger. Forgetting her footsteps, she stumbled backward, confusion mixing with the frightful certainty that something was horribly wrong. As she turned to run back to her house, the giggle returned, this time louder, creeping up her spine. A fleeting shadow danced across her peripheral vision, and she darted her head toward it. Just for a brief moment, she caught sight of movement in the corner of her backyard. Her stomach dropped as she felt an irresistible pull to investigate. Claire hesitated outside the gate. Shadows beckoned her, they whispered her name, coaxing her closer. Ella. If her daughter was out here, she needed to find her, but the fear sank deeper and deeper, warning her that whatever waited behind those shadows meant nothing good. As the giggling warped into a cacophony of laughter, soft, innocent and curdling all at once, her heart thundered in her chest. The sound seemed to swirl around her, wrapping her in layers of dread. Was Ella part of it now? She pushed open the creaking gate, its rusty hinges crying out like a warning. The darkness hung heavy as she stepped inside the yard, the night air turning staler, thicker. As she scanned the darkness, a faint glow caught her eye, flickering behind her garden shed. Was it light? Or was it something worse? With each step, dread settled into her soul, whispering unpredictability. Claire felt bile rise in her throat, caution warring against the urgency of her need. She was too close to give in to fear, yet too vulnerable to charge ahead recklessly. Then suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, sharp, jarring. She leaped back. Was there someone else? As she pulled it out, the screen illuminated her face and her eyes widened in horror. The call was from Ella's phone. It didn't ring on the line, but she could see what it said: FaceTime with Ella. Claire's breath froze in her chest. How could this be happening? Why did she feel the urge to answer it despite the impending dread? But before she could even move, shadows twisted at the edge of her vision, and she felt their chill creeping closer. What was waiting to greet her on the other side of the screen? Claire's heart raced as she struggled with the phone in her trembling hands. The screen pulsed with the call, a mocking beacon in the engulfing darkness. Her instincts screamed to run, to flee, but the urge to see her daughter overpowered every urge for self-preservation. She pressed the button. The screen flickered to life, and Claire's breath hitched. There she was, Ella. But not in her usual playful manner. The girl's face was pale, her eyes glaring wide with a strange intensity. It was almost as if she were looking through the screen, beyond the confines of technology, right into Claire's soul. "Mommy, help," Ella whispered, her voice a thin thread weaving between reality and nightmare. "What's happening, baby?" Claire's voice broke, the word baby falling painfully from her lips. "Can't breathe," Ella whispered again, her lips barely moving, as if every syllable took monumental effort. Panic surged in Claire's chest. The shadows shifted, looming, the air thickened. She shook her head, trying to dispel the heaviness that clung to her. "Where are you? Tell me where you are." "Here," Ella replied, tilting her head slightly, a vacant expression almost teasing the darkness around her. "So many of them, they're coming for me." Claire recoiled, a clawing fear gnawed at her resolve. "Ella! You have to come home," she pleaded, desperation coursing through her veins. The image flickered, colors swirling, distorting. Claire squinted at the screen. There was something else there, a shape lurking just behind the girl. A figure, easily missed at first glance, but Claire felt it like ice water in her veins. It stood tall, and shrouded in shadows, its form shifting with a life of its own. "Mom!" Ella wailed, her expression shifting from fear to an unsettling calm, as the figure stepped further into the light. "You have to listen." Dark fingers elongated, reaching toward Ella's small frame, weaving in and out of the phone's light like tendrils of smoke. "No! Don't touch her!" Claire cried, her throat tightening. The laughter bubbled again, echoing in the night. The shrill sounds clashed with her thoughts, a cacophony of laughter that clawed at the edges of her mind. The shadows around Claire thickened into a living darkness that surrounded her, closing in, hungry. Suddenly, the phone flickered again. The screen went blank, and Clara's pulse quickened. Heart pounding, hands shaking, she raked her fingers over the screen, but nothing changed. Then she heard it. A soft, sinister voice drifted from the depths of the night, a whisper that sounded like Ella mixed with something darker. "Mommy, save me!" Panic twisted in Claire's gut. She had to do something. The backyard was an abyss now, the shadows writhing, pulsing like a living entity. "Where are you?" she shouted into the dark, her voice cracking. "Where is Ella?" With no answer, fear crystallized into something sharper than dread. It became pure, unyielding terror. Shadows circled her ankles, a pressure closing in like a noose. Claire's breath hitched. She spun around, the sound of rustling leaves filling her ears like menacing whispers. Was she really all alone? She glanced back at the phone. Ella's image had vanished from the call. What had happened? The laughter returned louder, closer. It slithered across the grass, wrapping around her, suffocating her thoughts. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but the tension in her legs froze her in place. A low, rumbling giggle filled the air, reverberating off the garden shed, drawing her frozen eyes back to the flickering glow. Was that light beckoning or an omen? Its pulse held both promises and dangers untold. The ground beneath her quaked, she sensed movement behind her. She could feel a presence brushing against her, a shadow slipping just out of sight. In that moment, she realized the gate was still open, gaping like a dark mouth. Behind her lay the twisted path home, but in front of her a question loomed on the edge of her awareness, begging to be confronted. Was saving Ella worth uncovering whatever darkness lay ahead? Claire took a deep breath, the mystery growing deeper around her. Shadows danced in the periphery, beckoning her toward the light. "Ella!" She shouted one last time, and steeled herself for what was to come. With a pulse of determination mingled with dread, she took the first step towards the flickering glow. What awaited her there? And would it reveal the truth, or only draw her deeper into their haunted game? The air thickened, a weight pressing down as Claire ventured deeper into the backyard, heart racing like a trapped animal. The once familiar space had turned sinister, transformed into a nightmarish landscape where shadows danced with malevolent grace. Each step felt like stepping on glass, a tension pulsing through her legs as she neared the flickering light. The moment she crossed the threshold of the glowing circle, her senses spiraled into chaos. The chill in the air intensified, wrapping around her like icy fingers. The shadows swirling around the edges warped and twisted, as though they had become sentient, watching, observing, waiting. "Ella!" Claire cried out again, her voice trembling as the light's flicker pulsed like a heartbeat, casting eerie shadows that flickered on the walls like grim phantoms. "Mommy!" The soft voice broke through the tension. Claire whipped around, hoping for a glimpse, a sign of her daughter. But the yard had turned into a grotesque mockery of its previous self, as shadows slithered beneath the garden shed, shapes lurking just beyond sight. The darkness teemed with an insidious life of its own. With a surge of adrenaline, Claire sprinted toward the shed, the whispering laughter intensifying, echoing off the walls. "Help me, please." Ella's voice sounded different now, layered and thick like syrup dripping off a fork. It twisted in Claire's mind, filling her with anguish. "Ella! Where are you? Please!" she shouted, the words spilling from her lips like a desperate prayer. But all she received was silence, thick and suffocating, the kind that pressed against her chest and made breathing an act of will. The shadows laughing grew louder, more aggressive. Claire felt them at her back, like a pack of wolves closing in for the kill. She swung around, terrified they would pounce any moment. But when she turned, nothing met her gaze except the oppressive darkness that led into the alley behind her home. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, gaunt silhouette with elongated limbs, moving with an unsettling grace. Claire stumbled back, heart racing and breath hitching in her throat. It grinned, a rictus of twisted joy, eyes glowing like embers beneath an obsidian curtain. "Looking for something?" it rasped, and the voice was eerily smooth, the very essence of a nightmare given flesh. "Let her go!" Claire shrieked, adrenaline surging through her. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but rage held her grounded. "Let her go?" The figure laughed, a sound twisted and sharp, slicing through the darkness surrounding them. "She's ours, darling. And we're just getting started." Claire could feel the glow behind her dimming as despair started to creep back. "No!" she bellowed, instinctively turning to the light, the last beacon of hope. But as she glanced back, the shed engulfed the glow, shadows spilling forth, swallowing it whole. Panic ignited within her. "Ella!" She raced towards the darkness, keywords echoing in her mind, with adrenaline fueling her flight. Trepidation made her questioning repeat, was running from the dark really a solution, or only laying the ground for her worst fears? Then the ground shifted beneath her feet, unsteady, pulling her into its depths. A low rumble consumed the air as cold air slashed against her skin. Just then, the glow faded, then flared, reappeared, beckoning desperately. "Mommy!" Ella's voice rang near now, a shrill cry dancing on the edge of her consciousness. She reached for it. Closer, closer. And then the ground opened wide, swallowing her whole. Claire fell, darkness enveloping every inch, laughter echoing, changing, distorting into howls. Time blurred, nothing was real anymore. Was this the end? Amidst the chaos, she felt a tug, a connection that reached through that shattering darkness. It pulled her back. But where had Ella gone, and was she merely chasing a ghost of hope, a shadow amidst shadows? Claire grasped at the threads of her fading strength, desperate to untangle herself from the darkness threatening to bury her alive. What awaited her on the other side of that void? Would she find her daughter, or was there something sinister waiting to be uncovered? The fall felt endless, a plummet into nothingness that left Claire breathless. Frigid air clawed at her skin, disorienting her as shadows ebbed and flowed like a cruel tide. She grasped at the darkness around her, expecting to grasp something firm, but her fingers slid through it as if it were water. "Ella!" she screamed, her voice swallowed by the gaping abyss. Panic sparked in her chest, a wild animal desperate for escape. Claire fought back against the cold, trying to grasp the last remnants of her consciousness as it frayed at the edges like an old photograph. Why did it feel as if she was losing a part of herself, sinking into a memory she could not fully recall? Then, a sudden jolt. She landed, not softly, but her body hit the ground with a dull thud that reverberated through her limbs. Claire flinched, rolling to the side instinctively, heart pounding in her ears. The air shifted around her, it felt charged, heavy with a palpable dread. She took a breath, filling her lungs with an energy that electrified her, but it was tinged with an unmistakable stink like burned rubber fused with decay. Slowly, she pushed herself upright, blinking to bring the dim surroundings into focus. She was no longer in the backyard. She stood in a strange corridor, walls clothed in peeling wallpaper that whispered of ages past. The flickering light above swayed gently, revealing peeling paint and an uneven, dirty floor where shadows danced in chaotic waltz. "Mommy." The voice drifted again, soft and almost melodic, but it wrapped around her like a serpent, filled with deceit. "Ella." Claire responded, the darkness in her chest tightening with fear, a claw squeezing too tightly. She reached out, feeling for her daughter's hand, but found nothing but chilled air. The corridor stretched endlessly, growing narrower, the shadows creeping in from both sides. It seemed to pulse, as if breathing, drawing her in. Every instinct in her screamed to flee, yet, she pressed on, compelled by a force stronger than fear. As she walked, the whispers grew louder, echoing distorted fragments of her life, memories torn from her mind. "She doesn't want you." A soft voice echoed, twisting her name like a curse. "Leave her, it's already too late." Just then, the illumination flickered violently, revealing fleeting images like snapshots in a faded album. Ella laughing, then crying, faces warped in agony, darkness sweeping over them like a storm. Suddenly, the corridor split into 3 pathways, each shrouded in shadow, each beckoning her with a sinister pull. Desperation clawed at her instincts, and in a panic she turned right, the way that felt less suffocating, as if a distant warmth was just out of reach. Then, her foot slipped into something wet, something thick that encased her ankle in icy tendrils. A scream lodged in her throat, choked by terror. With a frantic jerk, she fell again. As she hit the ground, cold laughter broke through the oppressive silence, reverberating against the walls, mocking her. "Welcome back," the haunting resonance whispered, the words tasting like iron and ash. Claire's heart raced as shadows poured forth, thick and hungry. She felt their collective gaze upon her, one that bore deep into the fissures of her fear. "Let her go!" she shouted in response, her defiance filling the corridor like a fire igniting with life. But the laughter answered, swirling around her, chills sweeping through her skin. And that's when she saw it, a figure forming from the darkness ahead. It was small, no taller than a child. A familiar silhouette with patchy hair and an unsettling smile. "Mommy," it crooned, voice like jagged glass. But something was terribly wrong. The figure gestured toward the other 2 paths, a slow, deliberate motion that felt like a dare. "What's down those halls?" Claire trembled, eyes darting between the shadows. "Choices, Mommy." The small voice sang, bright and innocent yet laced with malice. "Only one way has your Ella." Each second stretched as Claire's breath came shallow and quick. A choice. A gamble. Her hope at stake. What awaited her in the dark? "Just pick one," the figure taunted, widening its eyes, leaning closer, grinning, revealing teeth too sharp for its innocent form, so beautifully horrid. Claire hesitated, fear clawing at the back of her throat. Which path would lead her back to her daughter? Or would the shadows claim her, leaving only another haunting whisper behind? The shadows shifted, waiting, watching, while Claire's heart thundered against her ribs. She had to decide, but would she be bold enough to step into the void once more? Claire's heart raced as she felt the weight of the shadows pressing against her. The air thickened, squeezing her lungs, making it hard to breathe. The figure loomed, unsettling and deceptively familiar. "Just pick one," it urged again, voice dripping with a sweetness that soured the moment. The flickering light above gathered intensity, illuminating the paths ahead, each a dark promise. The first path to her left emitted a low, sorrowful hum, as if it wept for something lost. Claire felt a pang of longing, a whisper of memory caught on the wind. Could it be a trick? The middle path pulsed with an ominous rhythm. It seemed to breathe, inhaling despair, exhaling dread. Claire shivered, a visceral response coursing through her. Whatever lay there felt alive, hungry. But the third path, the one to her right, flickered faintly with the semblance of warmth. It called to her, a soft beckoning that felt both inviting and terrifying. Was it hope, or another sinister lure disguised in light? Choose, urged the figure, cocking its head to the side, eyes glinting with malice. Claire reached out, trembling fingers brushing the cool air. "Ella!" she cried, her voice shaking. She couldn't think. She couldn't waste time. With a surge of adrenaline, she darted toward the right path, ready to defy the shadows that threatened to engulf her. Her feet flew across the muck-soaked ground, slipping and sliding, heart drumming like thunder against her chest. The walls of the corridor closed in, the peeling wallpaper adorned with grotesque shapes, twisted and contorted as if they were reaching out, clawing toward her. Laughter, a shrill chorus rose from the darkness behind her, teasing, taunting her choice. In a single moment, the flickering light stuttered out, leaving her plunged into an encompassing black, where visions of her daughter danced with ghosts of the past. "Mommy," the voice lilted from the void, laden with ache, and Claire's breath caught. The echo wrapped around her, spinning memories into a cyclone, the soft laughter, the bedtime stories, and then raw, gut-wrenching screams. A surge of desperation flooded her. "Ella! I'm coming!" she shouted, grasping desperately in the dark for something, anything that promised deliverance. But there was nothing. Just endless shadows twisting, writhing, mocking her resolve. She pushed forward, each step feeling like a betrayal of her own flesh. She could hear it now, a soft weeping, melodious yet mournful, echoing through the dark. Was that Ella? With every ounce of strength left in her, Claire sprinted faster. The corridor began to quiver, the air thickening with darkness, pressing against her, urging her backward. Every breath tasted of despair, smothering hope beneath its weight. And then, as she stumbled forward, light flickered again, illuminating a door ahead, a heavy wooden frame, splintered but resolute. Claire surged towards it, each heartbeat a hammer against the anvil of fear. Just as she reached the door, it creaked open slowly, revealing nothing but a blinding light that threatened to engulf her whole. In that moment, the voice returned, weaving through her senses, chilling her bones. "Choose wisely, Mommy. It could be your last chance." Claire hesitated, bathed in light and shadow, feeling the duality pulling at her. Was Ella in there? The moment hung like a pendulum, swaying precariously as the laughter faded. Would she step through into the unknown or remain bound to the darkness that sought her? Just as she took a breath to decide, the light flickered once more, and the laughter escalated to piercing shrieks that echoed all around her. She had to move. But would the door lead her to her daughter or straight into the abyss? A choice loomed before her, thick with dread. Claire's heart trembled, time was running out. What horrors awaited her within? Before she could decide, the shadows surged forward, hungry and relentless. What would she choose? The answers felt tantalizingly close, yet terrifyingly out of reach. Claire stepped through the doorway, heart pounding as the blinding light engulfed her. For an instant, the world around her dissolved into a haze, swirling colors that felt both soothing and suffocating. She gasped, bracing for impact, but instead found herself suspended in a vast white void, silence pressing heavily against her. "Mommy," the voice drifted through the emptiness, familiar yet fractured. Was it joy or despair hiding beneath those words? Claire turned in all directions, eyes straining against the unforgiving brightness. "Ella!" she called out, hope and fear intertwining in her throat. The light dimmed slightly, revealing shapes at the edges of her vision, spectral figures, faces twisted with grief and longing. Claire stumbled back, her heart racing as the specters stepped closer. They reached out, cold fingers brushing against her skin, sending ice through her veins. "Help us," they whispered in unison, voices merging into a haunting chorus. "No!" Claire cried, ripping herself away from their grasp. She jetted forward, but the void stretched endlessly. The shifting ground beneath her feet turned slick and uncertain, threatening to swallow her whole. "Mommy!" Ella's voice cut sharper, followed by echoes of laughter, lights and shadows dancing just out of reach. Claire strained her ears, trying to isolate it amid the wails of the lost souls. It was close. She could almost feel her daughter's warmth. But the shadows reformed, thick and barbed, weaving around her with malicious intent. "You didn't choose wisely," the figure from before mocked, its voice slithering through the air like smoke. "Where do you think you're going?" Claire squared her shoulders, a desperate bravery surging within. "I'm getting Ella." The ground shifted beneath her, and the environment blurred again. With every frantic step, the world transformed, darkness giving way to flickering images that felt like memories, splattered across her mind's eye. First, a birthday cake, Ella's laughter ringing clear. Then a playground, the swing swaying as if someone still played there. But the joy dissolved into visions of flickering light and shadows creeping closer, each memory tainted by the darkness that clawed at her. She halted, breath hitching as she saw a figure standing amidst the swirling chaos, small, vulnerable and terrified. "Ella!" Claire shouted, reaching out toward her daughter's silhouette, but the figure twisted away, as if the shadows held her hostage. "Mommy! Help!" Ella cried, terror slicing through the dissonance. Claire lurched forward, but something unseen yanked her back, binding her with invisible chains. The sinister laughter radiated from the figures encroaching around her, closing in like wolves on a wounded deer. "Join us, save her," they cooed, voices a devilish blend of desperation and delight. "All it takes is one sacrifice." "What do you want?" Claire screamed, panic flooding through her. "Let her go." They responded with laughter, a sound that reverberated through the void, feeling alive with malice. "A choice. Always a choice." The shadows began to morph, forming into grotesque mirrors reflecting different versions of Claire, each one showcasing her darkest moments, regrets, fears. The figures she loved most appeared among them, faces twisted in pain. "You're not enough, Mommy." With every taunt, Claire felt the walls of despair closing in. Ella's cries pierced through the darkness, pleading for her mother's strength, igniting a fire within Claire. "I will save her," she roared, desperation fueling her resolve. As if in response to her indignation, the ground vibrated. The laughter turned into screams, dissonant shrieks mingling with shadows. "You cannot defeat us," they screeched, recoil evident as they lost ground. But Claire was not finished. A light sparked in her chest, illuminating her desperation, illuminating her will. With all her strength, she propelled herself forward, focusing on her daughter's voice. In that heartbeat, a choice crystallized amidst chaos. Who would she sacrifice? With newfound clarity, Claire screamed, "I choose love." At that instant, the shadows recoiled, writhed, and then darkness exploded. When the smoke settled, she found herself standing in a dilapidated room, the air heavy with dust and despair. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsating gently as her heart beat wildly. In the corner, a small figure huddled beneath layers of shadows. Now Claire faced an unsettling question: was it really her daughter, or another dark deception? Ella's voice sliced through the silence, shaking the very foundation of Claire's resolve. "Mommy, please." Would Claire dare to reach out again? Claire's hand trembled as she stood anchored in the eerie stillness of the room. The walls, peeling and damp, seemed to pulse with each shallow breath she took. Shadows flickered in the corners, a theater of despair around her. "Ella?" she called, voice quivering. But her heartbeat thundered in her ears, a vicious reminder of what's at stake. "Please." The voice wavered again, desperation lacing every syllable. It dragged Claire closer, the instinct to reassure her daughter overriding every ounce of caution. As she stepped forward, the sense of dread thickened. Each inch felt like a weight pressing on her chest. Her eyes never left the huddled figure, wrapped in a cocoon of darkness. Was it truly Ella, or yet another cruel mirage conjured by the malevolent entities? "Mommy, I'm scared." Ella's plea sliced through the oppressive silence, and suddenly, Claire was no longer just afraid, she was furious. How dare this twisted realm play with her emotions, turn her love into fuel for its dark intentions? "I'm coming!" Claire screamed, lunging forward, arms outstretched. The shadows recoiled, snapping around her like serpents. As her fingertips brushed against Ella's silhouette, icy tendrils erupted from the darkness, coiling around Claire's wrists, binding her in place. "No!" Claire gritted her teeth, clawing against the bindings. She felt the resistance like chains of despair pulling back on her soul. The darkness laughed, cruel and echoing, vibrating through her bones. "You want her? Come to the shadows." Ella's figure began to dissolve, a mere wisp of smoke and memory. "Mommy! Help me!" Panic surged through Claire, faster than her racing thoughts. "What do you want from me?" She struggled against the bindings, sweat coursing down her back, heart pounding like a war drum. "Sacrifice," the voice from the shadows hissed. "Only through sacrifice can you save her." Even as the words slithered into her mind, Claire squeezed her eyes shut, trying to dispel the insidious whispers. In that darkness, regret clawed at her, a past filled with mistakes, moments she wished she could erase. The loss felt heavier than the chains around her. "Let her go, I'll do anything." Claire's voice cracked, desperation tinged with resolve. A gleeful chuckle resonated, vibrating the very air she breathed. "Anything?" "Yes!" Claire shouted, opening her eyes with fierce determination. She would not let Ella slip away into this nightmarish void. Suddenly, the shadows surged. They engulfed Claire, swirling around her like a furious storm. The air weighed heavily with threats, and she felt thoughts not her own invade her mind, dark memories, failures, and truths she hadn't faced. The laughter became a cacophony, circling her, mocking her frailty. "Who do you love most?" The figures twisted into faces she had long lost, each demanding her attention. "What will you give?" In that moment, a terrible clarity gripped her. Was love enough to defeat this nightmare? Could she face the shadows without yielding to their tricks? With every ounce of strength, Claire focused on Ella. She envisioned the warmth of her daughter's laughter, the way her small hand fit perfectly in hers. "I choose her. I will do whatever it takes to save my baby." The shadows shrieked in retaliation, blinding light erupting from her core. "Enough!" Claire roared, the pain pushing her beyond limits. But in the whirl of light and darkness, visions flashed. Was she ready to sacrifice fragments of herself? Motherhood was a bond of love and sacrifice. Could she do it? As the shadows began to twist, she felt their grip falter, but would it hold? What price would she pay to save her daughter? "Mommy!" Ella's voice echoed, laced with terror and something she hadn't heard before, betrayal. Claire recoiled. "What did you say?" "Let me go." The voice changed, deeper, more sinister. The realization washed over her like ice water. What if Ella was already lost? With doubt clinging to her, Claire's heart raced again, humming with uncertainty. Would love prove strong enough, or plunge her deeper into nightmarish despair? As shadows lunged, Claire's breath caught. She faced the ultimate choice. Would she risk it all? In that heart-stopping moment, one thought burned clear: the truth was relentless, and soon, she'd have to confront it. One last scream echoed as darkness surged. Would Claire reach the light before it vanished forever? The darkness constricted around Claire, thick and suffocating. She felt herself slipping, the chaotic laughter of the shadows melding into a single, horrific note, an ominous dirge resonating deep within her bones. "Claire, do you really want to save her?" The voice crooned, mockingly sweet. "You think love is enough?" "No!" Claire yelled, fighting against the fading warmth of Ella's presence. "I want to lose her. I refuse to believe you." The air around her twisted, distorting thoughts and memories into a grotesque labyrinth. A cacophony of whispers surrounded her, entwining with her very essence, seeking to drown her in doubt. Images surged forth, every scrap of regret, every moment she wished she could do over. There was the time she had scolded Ella for her painted fingers, smearing colors on the white couch. The anguish of the child's face, the look of betrayal hung in Claire's mind as sharply as the shadows within the room. What if I had shown her more patience? Would a truly good mother make that mistake? The darkness slithered around her, pulling tight. You're failing her, Claire. Just as you always have. No. Her voice broke, splintering into 1,000 shards, but she wouldn't back down. She had to fight, not just for Ella's safety but for her own sanity. With renewed fury, Claire pushed against the shadows, picturing Ella's joyous face, free of fear, laughing beneath the sun. I will fight for you until my last breath. I choose love. In that moment, she felt their grip slip, if only for an instant. She concentrated, focusing her will on Ella, forging a path through the shadows, forcing light to erupt around her. But then, the darkness retaliated, screaming like a banshee, clawing at her mind. Suddenly, a vision pierced through a door flung open, revealing a twisted, dark corridor. Claire squinted, heart racing. She had seen this corridor before, hadn't she? It was deep within the heart of the very house that had once felt so safe, now transformed into a battlefield of her own making. Step inside, the shadows beckoned, seducing her with hurtful memories. Face what you've ignored. Ella is waiting. Claire hesitated, dread washing over her like cold water. What if it's not just shadows waiting for me? Just as she thought to resist, an icy grip tightened on her wrist. Panic surged. The corridors now wrapped around her like something alive, drawing her closer to an unseen fate. She could hear Ella's faint cries again, but they sounded different, twisted in desperation. Mommy, why did you leave me? No. I'm right here. Claire gasped, a guilty ache blooming in her chest. Then come the shadows intensified, a malevolent tide ready to consume her whole. Caught in the turmoil, she saw Ella's fading silhouette again, blending into the darkness, becoming a sacrificial offering twisted into oblivion. Claire gritted her teeth. Enough. In a defiant rush, she forced herself forward, lunging into the corridor that beckoned her. As the pressure around her swelled, she screamed Ella's name, a siren cutting through the night. What lay ahead? Would she find her daughter? Or was there something in that corridor waiting to ensnare her? With a final, piercing shriek, Claire stepped into the darkness. The moment felt surreal, as if she had crossed a threshold into another realm entirely. Heart racing, she wondered if she could handle the answer looming just beyond her reach. And then, she heard it, the definitive click of a door closing behind her. Was she truly ready to face whatever horror lay ahead? Or would she, too, be lost within the shadows? Claire stepped into the corridor, darkness engulfing her like an old, familiar cloak. It was deceptive, knowing, she felt the shadows rooting for her to fail, to give into the tightness in her chest. But she wouldn't bend. Ella! She cried, her voice echoing through the emptiness. Yet all she received was silence, a silence that felt pregnant with secrets, weighed down by unseen threats. The corridor stretched endlessly, lined with door after door on either side. With each step, her thoughts raced. Was Ella behind one of them? Were these doors leading her to salvation or deeper into despair? A memory flickered in her mind, a small hand in hers, a soft laugh, the way they would dance in the living room. Claire's heart ached at the thought of that joy being replaced with fear. With urgency coursing through her veins, she sprinted to the first door on her left. It creaked open at her touch, revealing a room filled with swirling shadows. Their whispers clashed like 1,000 voices crying out simultaneously. She hesitated, heart pounding, as Ella's distant voice drifted toward her, choked and frightened. Mommy! Where are you? Claire stepped inside, the shadows darting around her, desperate to pull her under. "I'm here, Ella," she cried out, reaching forward. "I'm coming." But the darkness battled against her, laughing like a chorus from the depths. Each step she took felt heavier, saturated with despair. "You can't save her," they mocked, wrapping her tighter in their cold grip. She shook her head, driving back the suffocating fear. "No!" Claire shouted, grounding herself. "I refuse to believe you." Having shaken off their hold, she pushed deeper into the room, searching frantically for any sign of her daughter. It was chaotic, lights flickering, shadows morphing into contorted faces of the lost, each one beckoning her closer with hollow pleas. They felt unnervingly familiar, yet twisted. Then she heard Ella again, clearer now, emanating from the shadows. "Mommy, help me. We'll feast on your anguish," the shadows breathed, lunging. But Claire's resolve crystallized. "Keep your darkness away from her," Claire screamed. She called upon every ounce of love she had for Ella, wrapping it around her like armor, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. In that moment, she felt the connection surge, a tether of pure love spanning the divide. Claire focused on that thread, each heartbeat amplifying the bond, blasting a golden glow through the shadows. The laughter faltered, and the oppressive darkness recoiled momentarily. "Ella! I'm here!" Claire shouted again, the warmth radiating from her heart drawing her forward, making the shadows shrink back. As the light intensified, she caught sight of a small figure, huddled in the far corner of the room. "Mommy!" Ella's voice was filled with anguish, despair clawing at her words. The shadows tightened around Claire, desperate to snuff out the light, but she refused to let them win. With a sheer, unyielding surge of strength, she broke through the remaining darkness, rushing to Ella. "Hold on, baby." Claire reached out, fingers brushing Ella's small, cold hands. In an instant, light erupted, bursting from their joined grasp like fireworks. Shadows screamed, dissolving in the brilliance, leaving only silence around them. Then they were free. Claire pulled Ella into an embrace, the weight of the darkness lifting, replaced by a warm, golden glow around them. They fell together, breathless, the air thick with relief and love. "Mommy," Ella murmured, her tiny body trembling. "Shoo, I'm here." "You're safe now," Claire whispered through tears. She smoothed back Ella's hair, feeling the weight of her fears evaporate as warmth enveloped them both. But as Claire pulled back to look at Ella, she noticed a figure lurking at the edge of the light, a shadow still clinging to the darkness. "Let us go," Claire shouted, instinctively stepping in front of Ella, prepared to protect her daughter at any cost. The figure laughed, its tone sinister now. "You think you can escape me? You're bound by your fears." "No," Claire retaliated fiercely. "I am no longer afraid. Love conquers all." The light surged brighter as Claire channeled her love into a brilliant shield. The shadow shrieked, twisting violently, but it was too late. The light enveloped the dark figure, tearing it apart, banishing it to the depths from whence it came. They watched as the shadows dissolved, reclaiming their dominance over the corridor, leaving only a faint echo lingering in the air. "Can we go home now?" Ella asked softly, her eyes wide and innocent once more. "Yes. It's time to go home," Claire replied, her heart now swelling with hope. They turned, the corridor revealing itself once more, dark but somehow inviting. There, near the end, Claire spotted a familiar light glimmering, a warm welcome, a beacon calling them back. Together, they walked toward it, hand in hand, leaving that dreadful place behind. The doors of fear closed shut, locking away the horrors that once threatened to consume them. As they stepped into the warmth of home, a profound peace washed over Claire. The air felt lighter, filled with promise. No longer ensnared by the grip of darkness, they leaned on each other, mother and daughter, stronger than fear itself. With the shadows behind them, they stepped into the brightness together, knowing they would never allow that darkness to haunt their lives again. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are coming. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this chilling tale. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think Claire will face next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support for the channel. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions. Let's keep the story alive.